And now we
Glad I'm
forgot.
not a drinker.
folks, good evening to one and all, and welcome. Well, folks, good evening to one and all, and welcome to the number 2 of the Polo Cup Series tonight. We're back at the Killarney International Raceway. That is just 1 minute to go till the end of the free practice. A big thanks to our sponsor, the Hydraulics, that come on board and made this one possible for us. See, there's been 14 people out there on track for this open session, and I do believe we're going to be probably around about 20 odd that's going to be out there on circuit. As for always, the voice of West Farmers Motors.
Good evening everybody and welcome to Killarney International Raceway for round 2 of the National Polo Cup Series, and there are 15 of them out there at that point in time. Johnny Vaughan and Clinton Besaidnout must still do at least a lap. But yeah, the guys are out there as the clock is ticking down, and we're going to be out there shortly. Big thanks to all our sponsors for making this possible.
Well, see, already 15 cars out there, and as I said, that is the last minute of the normal practice session. We'll now be having a 1 minute break, and according to the setup, we will go into a 5 minute quali session. Going to give you probably around about 3 laps. That's about all three. It's going to be a all or nothing dash for cash shootout, that one. And then we'll be going into 17 minutes plus a lap. But as I said, joining us also tonight, Mike's side, is Francois Butler. Francois, good evening to you.
Fantastic having us on board here tonight at Killarney. The weather on the live stream looking pretty good. Nothing what the real weather is like. The cold front coming in pretty hard and fast. We're expecting some very inclement weather, but at least the weather is good for racing. So hopefully we're up for some very good racing tonight. Well, looks like everyone's finishing up on their practices, and we'll move into the qualifying session, which should be about 5 minutes before we go racing. Which should be around about 17 minutes plus 1 lap.
The checkered flag is out on the practice sessions, and we'll be taking a quick break, and then we will be getting ready for the official qualifying, which will then lead into the 2 races. So there are 15 cars out there, which 13 of them done practice so far. Johnny Vaughan and Clinton Besaidnout did not, but they will certainly be out there when it comes to the official qualifying, which will be starting shortly.
Sorry about the sound.
Sorry about the sound. I think we had one mic that had a bit of a crackle on it, so we're going to just use one microphone this evening. So Melvin Close, the fastest of the pre-qualifiers out there, and he's the only man to break the 1 minute 24s, right down to 12th position, 11 positions in fact in that free practice session, all doing in the 1 minute 24s. So it's going to be very tight out there, no doubt about it. 1 or 2 guys that unfortunately not making it out onto the track this evening due to the fact that they've got load shedding, and 1 or 2 of the Class B guys joining in. So to those guys that have joined us on short notice, to you guys, very big thanks to you guys. It should all be systems go in a couple of seconds from now.
Just waiting for qualifying session. So just waiting for qualifying session to take over there. And we've got some well-known names out there. The likes there of Lyle Ramsey, Adrian Nell, Jailich, Peter Grubler's out there, Waldo Swiggers, Melvin Goos, Warren Sheehan, Mike McGeer, and Kotz's out there, Gert Niemand, Clinton Besaidnout, Christopher Long. So they're all going to be out there challenging each other on the Killarney circuit. That's pretty well known. They're currently all exiting the pit lane now, making their way up into turn number 2, and working their way down through the Killarney to the Rose Foundation, turn number 3, before they go up the Malmesbury Straight, and all basically just getting some heat into the tyres before they start setting their pace laps.
As they work their way around the circuit, that's the first of the cars out there, Nell and Leach and Ramsey. I must say Lyle Ramsey has done pretty well with the races that we've watched him do recently. Melvin Close and Peter Grobler as well. Valdez Swiggers, nice to see that he's made it out there. Warren Sheehan's done quite a little bit of practicing, as has Gerard Niemand. That's him going out into the back main. Quinton Mazedno, our national driver, out there as well in the Polo Cup Series. John Henry Vaughan in the Maps Racing car in the proverbial orange colours. A big thanks to Maps Racing, John Vaughan, as well as Jana van der Westhuizen from Quick Fix, and Yuri Swart from with the commentary side of
Sheehan, Valdez Swiggers, Kotses out there, Absmeer, Gerard Niemand, Christopher Long, Clinton Bassena, John Andrew Vaughan, Sean Lareo, Stuart Mack and Gavin Fleming are all out there. 17 cars, but you'll see when they cross the start-finish line to start another lap. Dramatic. 1 minute 34.435 will drop down dramatically.
Well, we're on board there with Melvin Gous there for a while, watching him going down into turn number 1, commonly known as KFM corner. Late on the brakes there, down a gear. They work their way, they feather their way around the corner, try and come in off the apex there, and they start getting on the gas, making their way up the U-bed straight up towards G-Energy corner. And finding their way around, taking a sort of a wide line, cutting back in onto the corner, and it's a bit of a strange one because it tends to spew out towards your left-hand side, and then you've got to negotiate the kink up ahead of you. You work your way down through the left-hand kink, going down hard, timing on the brakes, going down a gear, taking the right hand out of turn number 3, commonly known as Rose Foundation, up the KFM straight, up towards Malmesbury, and Melvin Gous, the pace setting there. And Peter Grobler, the man to watch on a 124.1, currently leading out Leach on 124.19. And Clinton Bassena, well, he's been around the circuit a couple of times, so he won't be too averse to what he's experiencing on the circuit.
See Grobler on his way down the back main, 1 minute 24.1, that's 900ths of a second quicker than what Leach is, and it's going to be very close up front. Melvin Gous, the man from Namibia, doing a pretty decent job. He's got himself up there into the top 4, and then rounding out the top 5 is now going to be Clinton Bassena, that works his way in on a 124.2. So Grobler dives onto the top of the log as well. So a lot of the oopsie, there he goes off the circuit. Does Grobler, sticks it one pretty heavily into the wall. Leach carries on and does yet another lap. There is only 15 seconds left to go, and all 17 of them have already made it out onto the circuit.
Time counts down. Right, so as the time counts down to 0, the first man to take the checkered flag on a 123.921 is Peter Grobler, as we're on board now with the Clinton Bassena in the SRA. That is the blue one that you see making the way out of G-Energy corner now. We're on board with the Mike's Place Polo of Chris Long, as Chris Long exits Car Care Clinic corner, also known as Malmesbury, and makes his way down the long Killarney back straight towards turn 5, the Fostron corner. Lyle Ramsey has taken the checkered flag as well, and so has Gerard Niemand. Warren Sheehan has also crossed the line, so slowly but surely, one by one, the guys are taking the checkered flag to complete the qualifying session.
Well, a great time posted there by Peter Grobler on a 1:23.9. Commonly known as Grobby there on the front of his car, the number plate. Leach coming through on a 1:23.9.35, only 200ths of a second in it for the front row. Some pretty nail-biting stuff. Arden Nel, Melvin Ghost sitting there on the second row. John Henry Vaughan, Clinton Besaidner, Epspire.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Everybody, let's go. I'm the party starter. Everybody, let's go.
And Christopher Long, in fact, as well, on row number 6, alongside Warren Sheehan, Valdus Wiegers and Mike McGeer, taking 13th and 14th position. Stuart Mack and Gavin Fleming just ahead there of Gerard Niemand. Gerard came on pretty late onto the server, so you can expect that he's going to be able to make up a good couple of positions as we go through. A big thanks to the guys behind the scenes that make it all possible, and I must say Melvin and Warwick, and wow, what amazing guys that go very much out of their way to make this all happen and spend many hours in the background to put it all together for us. Utterly fantastic. So it's going to be 57 seconds, so it's 1 minute from the time that they get there onto the grid, and then it's going to be all systems go from there on out. Just pick up a nice shot. Unfortunately, the TV will not give us that front shot yet as they go down towards turn number 1. Look at there, you see, look at the top of your screen, you'll see 30 seconds to go from the takeoff. So the front row of the grid will be Grobler and Leach. Adrian Nel will be quick, there's no doubt about it, as will Melvin Ghost. Christopher Long finds himself now in that 5th position, so it looks like the computer has rescrambled them to where they are supposed to be, also moving Gavin Fleming up there into that 12th position. And then I see Jay de Villiers, another man that's also very much involved in the background to get this all together, has got himself now there at the back of the pack. Everybody standing on the brakes, and they'll be waiting for the pace car. There he comes, computer Fundi, and that works his way through to the Warwick Stewart with a pace car. Computer Fundi, that works his way through to the front of the pack with a pace car. There he is. Now that is the Golf GTI. I had the happy session a little bit earlier on with all these Polos out there. I went out with that Golf that he's riding, that GTI. JP Hydraulics SRA Racing officials vehicle, and believe you me,
Side from the Western Province Motorsports Commentators Association, the Golf GTI, the JP Hydraulics Golf GTI will make its way into the pit area. There are plenty of these Polos working their way down the Killarney back straight into turn 5, Fostron corner. Through Fostron, this whole gaggle of cars work their way out of Fostron. They head now towards the main straight, known as the Porsche Straight. Here they come down towards us now. Francois Butler, would you take them off the line?
Right, so the pace setter, Peter Grobler, holds them and he takes them up towards the line now. The lights will go on once they cross the line and then they will get away. We get up towards the line and onto the gas they get and they make their way down towards KFM corner. Down towards KFM corner they go. We have a look. See Grobler around the outside. He takes the lead there. Adrian Nell seems like he's forced his way up there into second place. They come out of, and a couple of cars going a little bit wayward there. Going a bit louder into KFM and someone leaving the circuit in a big way there as they work their way around. Now in normal terms that'd be a little bit difficult now. Car going right across them there. Still Grobler holding out from Adrian, Melvin Gous, Clinton Besaidnout, Jason Absmeyer, Lyle Ramsey, John Henry Vaughan, Christopher Long, Kotze, Valdo Swiggers, Sean Lareria, Warren Sheehan and Stewie Mack make up their top 13 now as they all sort of line astern, making their way up to Karke Clinic corner.
As well in that, he tries to stick it up on the inside as John Henry Vaughan works his way there on that inside line, and that's knocked Kotze off the circuit. Kotze coming back on. Kotze was practicing quite a lot with that's the black and orange car. He was busy earlier on doing lots and lots of laps, and he was getting quicker and quicker as time went by, and I was quite disappointed to see him getting knocked off there, because the man's done a lot of hard work to try and ensure that he's right there on the pace. Grobler from lights off the line, he was very quick. Nell is right in there behind him, but Melvin Gous, as we expected, the man from Namibia in that top 3 and doing a brilliant job. Don't forget about Christopher Long, just a little bit further back. That's him coming through with a black vehicle with a red striping on it.
Right, we were aboard there with John Henry Vaughan that sits there in that 6th position, but it's all about Peter Grobler and Adrian Nell and Melvin Gous as they head now up the Joubert Straight. There's cars going off there coming out of KFM corner. Sean Lareio is making his way out of G Energy, but that fight up front, there's only 0.3 of a second between Peter Grobler and Adrian Nell, and not much between them and the JP Hydraulics car of Melvin Gous. That's in that 3rd position, followed there by Clinton Besaidnout and Jason Absmeyer as they work their way through Car Care Clinic corner. That's turn 4, the old Malmesbury sweep. Out of turn 4, down the Killarney Straight they go now. We're on board with Adrian Nell. 0.4 of a second behind race leader Peter Grobler as they squirted down the back main towards Fostron corner.
Well, they're going to turn 5, Fostron corner now. It's an embankment, so a little bit of G-forces there now as they work their way around the right-hander. They go posse right before they hang a left up the main straight, up the Porsche Straight. They go now under the Spirit Bridge now, making their way down towards KFM. Still, Peter Grobler leads out from Adrian Nell, Melvin Gous, Clinton Besaidnout, Jason Absmeyer, John Henry Vaughan, Christopher Long, and Valdo Swiggers take up the top 8 there now as they work their way down into KFM corner now. They hang a 180 left-hander now up the Joubert Straight up towards G Energy corner. And we're on board now with the overseas driver, Jason Absmeyer. Not too fair with the track there now. Late on the brakes there, turns in towards it now, lets it go, feathers it through the apex now. And he'll work his way around, and you'll see it'll force him towards the outside, which is a good line, and he'll cut up on the inside of the kink down towards Rose Foundation.
Pushing as hard as he possibly can to get through there, no doubt about it. Doing a very, very neat job of that. That's the KFM Straight that they're running through now. But Grobler's got some close attendance from behind. In fact, it's not going to be easy to get away whatsoever from Nell. Nell just 0.3 of a second behind that. Then the gap from 2nd to 3rd, you can see that's 0.5 of a second. Besaidnout with a blue car on the inside, that's on your right-hand side, and on the outside of that, that is Christopher Long. That's the black one that's now, in fact, he's got in front of Besaidnout, locking up those wheels pretty heavily as he came in there, was Christopher Long. Behind Besaidnout, there is a bit of a gap from back to Swiggers. As you can see, Swiggers has got this whole gaggle of cars coming through behind behind. Remember, John Henry Vaughan went off on the outside of KFM corner, turn number 1, and he bounced back on the track halfway up the Joubert Straight. Well, this is the fight back from John Henry Vaughan. Oh, up on the inside line, and they make contact as he hammers his way through there, and that's going to take him off onto the outside of the circuit, and he doesn't make up that position, but that does bring Warren Sheehan to within less than a second of the back end of John Henry Vaughan.
Yeah, with all this happening, Sean Loreo also made his way past a lot of them as Waldo Swiggers comes past us now. He makes his way through the kink, heading towards Rose Foundation. We are now aboard with Waldo Swiggers. Swiggers coming through, sliding that Polo out of Rose Foundation. He's got John Henry Vaughan and Warren Sheehan right there as Clinton Besaidner sits there in P5, 4/10 of a second. Behind fourth place man Jason Absmeer. That's still Grobbies that leads out there in P1, 8/10 of a second between himself and Nell in second position. Melvin Gous is 4/10 of a second behind Nell, and Jason Absmeer in P4 was 1.3 seconds behind third place man Melvin Gous. As they head out of turn 5, out of Fostron corner, onto the Porsche Straight they go now. Flat box across the start-finish line into turn 1 KFM corner. We are aboard with Gous in that third place. He's having a look at Nell as he nailed him. Nell's up on the inside. Gous had a look. He did not make the move stick. He has gone through now into second. Melvin Gous has made the move stick there, demoting Nell into third, but Nell coming right back at him once again.
Well, a little bit of rubbing is racing up the Joubert Straight there between Gous and Nell. And we sit on board there with Waldo Swiggers up behind John Henry Vaughan. John Henry Vaughan going a little bit loud into turn 1 a little bit early on. It was a little bit of a setback for him, so he's got a little bit of work to do there now. But keeping a close eye here on Waldo Swiggers as he tracks John Henry Vaughan full line. And now we go on board with Adrian Nell. Nell sitting up behind second place man Melvin Gous. Melvin Gous looking a little bit loose there out of turn number 4 as they go down the back straight now. And they're all chasing that main leader there, Peter Grobler. He seems to have this one pretty nicely sewn up, but not too comfortable at the moment because Melvin Gous only about 1.5 seconds up behind him now as they dive into Fastron corner, all sort of braking as late as they can past the 50-meter braking board and working their way through the cambered right-hand corner now as they work their way around Posse sort of 180 and then a nice king towards the left up the main Porsche Straight down towards turn number 1, which is KFM corner. Frankie, this is starting to heat up into rather a tight race.
Yeah, it's getting pretty interesting now as Melvin Gous is 6/10 of a second behind the Grobbies. And Nell sitting there in that third place. I was watching a dice a bit further down with Gerard Niemand and Gavin Fleming. Fleming's only 1/10 of a second out of the top dozen, just behind Niemand there, as we're on board now with Adra Nell sitting there in that third position. Through G Energy they go now, through the kink and through Rose Foundation. There's not much between this group of National Polo Cup racers as they work their way up the KFM Straight towards turn 4. That is Car Care Clinic corner. Out of Car Care Clinic they come now, working their way down the back Killarney Straight. We sit there on board with Adra Nell, 5/10 of a second between himself and Gous, who was 1.1 seconds now behind race leader Peter Grobler. So Grobbies is pulling the pin and beginning to get away.
Oh, you're going to have to keep an eye on Peter Grobler because he's doesn't have too much longer to go, and he's making sure he stays ahead there of Melvin Gous. Adrian Nell's been tracking Melvin Gous, showing a little bit of battle scars there as the rubbing as racing has been going on there. Overseas man Jason Absmeyer sitting there in P4 with Clinton Besaidner tracking him there with Christopher Long, Sean Larerio, John Henry Vaughan, Waldo Swiggers and Warren Sheehan making up the top 10 now. As we're on board there with Gavin Fleming going down towards KFM corner, you'll watch they go very late on the brakes and they dive towards the inside to hug that corner, working their way out. They'll get spat out towards the right-hand side up the Joubert Straight they go now. And still Gavin Fleming, well, he's quite accustomed to this circuit. He knows what it's all about now. Late on the
10,
side and sits up there behind Leach. Leach keeping the door firmly shut, and Gavin looking for a way through there now as they work their way down through the kink down towards Rose Foundation.
Right out of rows they come, out of turn 3. We're on board with third place man Adranel, who's trying to get away there from Jason Absmeer in that fourth position. Clinton Besaidnout sits there in P5. Chris Long is in P6. Sean Lareo is there in P7, followed there by Vaughan, Swiggers and Sheehan. McGear and Niemand round off the top dozen. Out of turn 5, Fostron corner, this group of National Polo Cup races come. Proudly brought to you by JP Hydraulics and Volvo Cars Namibia. Across the start-finish line, they squirted now. Besaidnout sits there in P5. He's a second, 1.1 seconds now behind Absmeer as Pieter Grobler turns it into turn 1 KFM corner.
I think he's going to have to push pretty hard from here on out. He hasn't been able to drop Gous, Nel, Absmeer, any of them. A bit of a gap back to Clinton Besaidnout, but then again Christopher Long is starting to give him a hard time. That's inboard with Christopher Long as they go down into the G Energy corner. That smoke that you see there, the settings that they've got on the computer is such that it's only got a 20% lockup on the diff. So you have to play with that accelerator as you come out of the corner. Otherwise, it just ends up going slower as it spins that right-hand front wheel as it takes the load off as it goes through the corner. Now, Christopher Long wants to have a look up on the inside Besaidnout. Nope, not enough space there to be able to work his way through. Coming very, very close onto the back there of Besaidnout. Now he dives out onto that inside line. The blue SRA car sitting on the left-hand side is giving him fair chance to come past, but believe you me, he's not going to give it away unnecessarily.
Right now they dive into Fastron. Oh, very late on the brakes as Christopher Long is hugging that inside. He is very fortunate that the back end never stepped out there, but a good little bit of car skill there from Christopher Long relegates Clinton Besaidnout down to P6. So they're still going to be a very tight affair as they work, and just slightly up ahead of them there. Absmeer and Nel having a little bit of a issue there, but we're going now through towards the checkered flag as the time has run out, and it looks like Melvin Gous has got ahead there of Pieter Grobler.
Yeah, we've still got 2 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock as this whole group of guys make their way out of G Energy corner. Gous sits there in P1. Grobler is in that second position. He's been demoted now by Gous, and he's 7/10 of a second behind Gous. Nel is there in that third place, being hounded there by Jason Absmeer, and they're getting away there from Christopher Long. Right behind him is Clint Besaidnout. That's the top 6 cars now as they head through KFM straight into Car Care Clinic. Out of Car Care Clinic they come and squirt these Polos down the back Killarney straight. That's about 500-600 meters down that Killarney straight as we ride aboard fourth place man Jason Absmeer. Riding down the back straight now into turn 5, into Fastron corner. Oh, and there's contact. John Henry Vaughan on the back end of Sean Lareo. Now Vaughan sits on the outside. Lareo covers inside line. There's a bit of a lockup and there's contact between Vaughan and Lareo. But it's Lareo that hangs in there ahead of John Henry Vaughan as the Polo Cup drivers work their way across the line. Now we'll have to see as the time is running out Will they be now on their final lap, or will there be another lap to go afterwards? We'll look and see as this whole field of Polo Cup works their way out of turn 1, out of KFM corner. We are board with John Henry Vaughan, who's looking up on the inside of Sean Larejo. Larejo gets muscled to the outside, but Larejo does have the line for turn 2. Yep, the leader's got 2 laps to go as they work their way into G Energy corner.
John Henry Vaughan trying very hard there with Sean Larejo, but I must say Larejo is pretty quick. Keep in mind that Nel finds himself just 0.3 of a second there behind Grobler. Now, Grobler has been very, very consistent. I do believe that Grobler is losing touch with Melvin Gous, the man from Swakopmund in Namibia, as he takes the JP Hydraulics car away into the future. Grobler now has to concentrate on Nel. Nel's right up there behind him. Nel dives out to that inside line. The two of them are very, very close to one another as they work their way down towards Cape Town corner. Fast, strong, hard on the brakes, locking up that right-hand front is now Grobler right in there with him. The two of them, remember, have now broken away from Christopher Long. The black car with the red bumper that you see a little bit further back, that's just ahead of Clinton Bezuidenhout. The two of them rounding out the top 5 positions, and that is the distance that Bezuidenhout is behind Long, and they are now on the last lap. So Melvin Gous, looking out of his front windscreen, sees no lapped traffic in front of him. All he's got to do now is keep it nice and smooth. Look up into the mirror and you'll see that Grobler and Nel are sitting right alongside one another going down into G Energy corner.
Well, some exciting stuff here now. Peter Grobler, as Adrian Nel goes up on his inside in G Energy, and Grobler taking a bit of wide line, losing traction, afforded Nel to creep a little bit closer. So he's managed to go up on the inside. Watch now as they come through Rose Foundation, and Adrian Nel trying to keep Peter Grobler up behind him now. As down the road goes Melvin Gous, and he's leading out. He's got to keep it on the black stuff. Just up behind him now, it's Christopher Long ahead there of Clinton Bezuidenhout, who we're on board with at the moment now as they go down the back straight down towards Fastron corner. High speed stuff here now. They're halfway down the Killarney straightaway now. Under the trees they go down towards Fastron corner. Frankie, bring him home.
The checkered flag is out. There's still a dice on for that 2nd and 3rd position between Nel and Grobler. That has allowed Gous to break away. He's 1.5 seconds ahead there of Nel and Grobler. In 2nd and 3rd, through the kink they go, onto the Porsche straight towards a checkered flag. The race is done and dusted, and Melvin Gous brings it home in P1. Adrian Nel finishes 2nd. Peter Grobler comes home in that 3rd position. Christopher Long finishes in P4. Clint Bezuidenhout in P5. And rounding off the top half a dozen is John Henry Vaughan in P6.
Wow, that was brilliant stuff there by Melvin Gous, I must say. A very, very good drive.
Oh, I like it when you break down low.
in third place, and he was leading more than half of the race, and he was hassled there by Nel that was in second, and Gous that was in third. Eventually he dropped down to third in Grobler, and Gous came home in P1 with Nel second. Chris Long was fighting mid-pack for a long while, and then you saw him slowly begin to move his way up the leaderboard together with Clinton Besaidenote. Johnny Vaughan had his problems out there, but managed to get into that
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Party starter. Are you ready to go? I'm the party starter. Party starter. Party starter. Party starter. I'm the party starter. Everybody, let's go. I'm the party starter. Everybody, let's go.
Real life out there on the different circuits, and that is how the setup of the car was designed, and hence the fact that they haven't locked up that diff any more than what it was. They've set it on 20% and they say that's it. You're going to have to play with the accelerator if you want to really get the power down, and that's what's made it very interesting, where the guys that are just a little bit more relaxed, you ride 10 tenths, you ain't going to get nowhere. You need to be just a little bit lighter and a little bit smoother on the foot and feed it in. And as you see the smoke coming off the right-hand front wheel when they go out onto the brakes, hard on the brakes, then you'll also see that it smokes that inside wheel as well. So it looks like it's Swiggers and Lerero that's gone in there. So it is definitely the top 8 that's been swapped around. In fact, the top 9 that they've swapped, they've taken Gous down to 9th position. So Gous and Stuart Mack on that 5th row of the grid. Then it is Nel and Grobler in there just ahead of that. And then ahead of Nel and Grobler is Long, Besaidenote, John Henry Vaughan and Besaidenote on the 2nd row of the grid. And then, as we said, Valdo Swiggers and Sean Lerero at the front. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess that if Sean Lerero and or Swiggers able to catch him as Warwick Stewart takes the Golf GTI to the front, the JP Hydraulics GTI Golf takes that to the front of this Polo pack, and off the line they go for their warm-up lap.
Yeah, big thanks to JP Hydraulics in Walvis Bay and to Volvo Cars Namibia in Windhoek, the sponsors of this National Polo Cup Series, all part of SRA Sim Race Africa, for round number 2, race number 4. It's the second session of the Polo Cup. Remember, a couple of weeks ago we were at Killarney, and now we are at Killarney International Raceway. So we've come from Killarney Grand Prix Circuit to Killarney International Raceway as this field of polos work their way out of turn 2. That's commonly known as G Energy Corner, also known as Quarry Corner. Now they work their way through the kink into Rose Foundation, also known as Dam's Dip, to people that don't know the original names of the Killarney International Circuit. Then they go up the KFM Straight, which is also known as the Malmesbury Straight, and then into turn 4, Car Care Clinic. That's also known as Malmesbury Sweep. There they work their way now through turn 4. And then they work their way down the back straight, commonly known as the Killarney Straight. That's the Mike McGear car, Stewie Mack, going down the back Killarney Straight. Into turn 5, they'll go now, Fostron Corner. Of course, the original name for Fostron is Cape Town Corner. And then they'll work their way out of Cape Town Corner onto the main straight, also known as the Porsche Straight. So, guys, They are about to work their way now out of Fostron as the Golf GTI, driven by Warwick Stewart, the pace car, moves off the circuit, and now it's in the hands of Waldo Swiggers.
Waldo Swiggers, what does he do with this whole pack of cars behind him? Remember, Sean Larera is a previous series champion as well. So Sean Larera battling a bit in heat number 1, making up a fair amount of ground, finding himself now on the front row of the grid. It's going to be very interesting stuff to see what he can do from there. So they'll bunch them all together now. Look at that, getting them very, very close. 0.2, 0.3 of a second between them. All of them, they're nice and tight together. And when they come off the line, it's going to be all systems go as they work their way down in towards turn number 1. Look at that. Down into turn number 1 they go. Kane Swiggers make that one stick. Look at that on the outside line. Running very, very wide. There is Bezuidenhout. Can he hold on to it? Yes, he does. He in that 5th position. He's got Christopher Long in there with him. There's 1 or 2 cars there's 3 cars that have gone off at the back of the pack. In fact, that's Lerero and Goos that's gone off there at the back of the pack. So they were in 9th and 10th position in that mid-pack, and that's cost them. That's moved the likes of Gerard Niemand, Gavin Fleming and Mike McGeer up inside the top 10 with Stuart Mack and Kotze in there as well.
Well, young John Henry Vaughan relishing the opportunity now to lead out. Up behind him, Adrian Nel, Waldo Swiggers and Clinton Bezuidenhout. Clinton Bezuidenhout showing his mettle there. Like I said, season campaigner. He's now fortunate as he looks, it's a little bit running sideways. Some brilliant car skills there from, it looks like Christopher Long there and Waldo Swiggers working their way through now as they come down the back straight. Now Christopher Long's got back in order there as he works his way down the back straight. Up behind him there now it's Mike McGeer and it's Gavin Fleming coming in there now. Late on the brakes, Fleming look up on the inside. I tell you what, Swiggers is trying his utmost to retain his position, but he's gone back 1. He's down in 6th place now. Mike McGeer up in front of him. Race being led there by John Henry Vaughan, making his way down the Porsche straight down towards KFM. Behind him it's Adrian Nel, then Clinton Bezuidenhout. Up behind Clinton Bezuidenhout it's Christopher Long, and sitting right up behind him Mike McGeer and Waldo Swiggers and Gavin Fleming running a bit wide there now. So I think they're just a little bit overzealous at the moment, Frankie, and then tend to run a bit deep into the corners.
Yeah, the guys are trying as hard as they can. Waldo Swiggers sits there behind the 69 of Mike McGeer. Ahead of them is Christopher Long. Gavin Fleming sits there in P7 just behind Swiggers. But it's all about John Henry Vaughan, 1.4 seconds ahead of second place man Adrian Nel. Out of Rose Foundation, they work their way up the Killarney straight, up the KFM straight into Car Care Clinic corner. Out of turn 4 they go now. Swiggers, we're on board with Swiggers. You can see Gavin Fleming in his rear view mirror. If you look up, you'll see Fleming. Behind Fleming, it's Kotze, Warren Sheehan, Stevie McGarrett, Niemand. That's been overtaken there by James Leach. But Swiggers sits all over the back of McGeer. Is only a 10th of a second behind him as they are now side by side. And Swiggers has got the inside line and gets his nose ahead there of McGeer.
That was very, very tight to get through there, but Swiggers did a very, very good job of that. It's not over yet. Between Swiggers and McGeer, it's 0.1 of a second, nothing much in it. It depends what happens now when they come down to turn number 1. Look at that, still side by side. Are they going to give one another enough space? Well, just about. Rubbing is racing, I suppose. Look at that, that is how close they are as they come out into the Jabez Straight. Onto the grass. Fleming sitting there in the mirror, you can see he's got just a little bit closer. You'll be hoping and praying that they slow one another up as they are, because that will bring him just a little bit closer. Keep in mind that as they slow one another down, Christopher Long has now got 1.5 seconds looking back from Christopher Long's car, and that helps a lot because that just takes the pressure off him, and now he can concentrate on what is happening in front of him, as that's the gap that he now has behind him as Christopher Long, and there is the 2 leaders in front of him as they work their way through the double right-hander out into the back main. But remember what we said before the race started, the likes of John Henry Vaughan, we've seen him once before get a breakaway. If he gets a breakaway, he updusts and disappears. He might just do it. Well, there you see it, the man from Maps Racing doing a brilliant job as he completes lap number 4 as he comes up towards the main straight.
Well, still a good 9 laps in there, so lots to be done. We watched John Henry Vaughan go through there with Adrian Nalklin, there was saying Chris Long, Mike McGear, Waldo Swiggers goes through there now with Gavin Fleming watching these two in front of him. And he must be thinking, well, why don't the two of you just trip each other up so I can get past? Well, let's see what they do as the two of them dive in side by side going into KFM corner. And Gavin Fleming creeps a little bit closer now. It's a three-way tie. Oh, and look at Swiggers. He's this way, he's that way now. He tries to go around the outside now of Mike McGear. But McGear, seasoned veteran now, holds up on the inside line. And if Fleming's good, he can stick his nose up behind McGear and try and tow his way through down as they make their way towards the King, Frankie.
Well, this is that fight for, I think, 5, 6 and 7th position. Yes, Swiggers, McGear and Fleming out of Rose Foundation now. And have a look at Gavin Fleming. He's right on the back bumper there of Mike McGear as they squirted through turn 4 out of Car Care Clinic. Now, Gavin is only 0.2 of a second behind McGear. He can get the slipstream and have a dive up on the inside. You can see Swiggers is busy getting away there from McGear. Fleming must move to the inside now. Yes, there he goes up on the inside. He has to stomp on the brake pedal a bit later and put pressure there on McGear, which he does. And he slides through on the inside. Well, we're on board now with Gavin Fleming. Has he gone through? No, he sits there on the outside of McGear, but he hasn't got the line for the left-hander. If I was him, I'd just tap off slightly and move directly behind him. But Fleming, if he can stay there, Gary, and work his way around, he will have the line for turn 2 G-Energy corner.
Unfortunately, there he loses it completely as he tried just a little bit too hard, and that takes him right down to 16th position. It was hard on the brakes, as Frankie said. Have a look to just dive in there behind and then work it through turn 1. Now he decided, let's go around the outside, outbraked himself, ran it off the circuit. Well, as he started outbraking himself, got tapped there, and unfortunately, well, that's all it takes. You do not recover from 5 seconds back in a race like this. 7 minutes 41 still to go. John Henry Vaughan up, dusted and disappeared from Adrian now. Bezuidenhout and Long, the two of them now very close to one another, even closer than what they were earlier on. Here's Christopher Long in behind Bezuidenhout. Bezuidenhout's got lots of open ground in front of him, and then Waldo Swiggers, you can see in the mirror, is a long way back. So this is just a straight two-way battle between these two champions.
Right, so keeping an eye there on Christopher Long now. He tried a bit of a switchback there, ran deep into Fostron corner, tried to switch back there on Clinton Bezuidenhout. Bezuidenhout is very wise to win, ran middle of the road and kept him at bay there now. And we're on board now with Leach. He sits up there behind Steve Mac pushing pretty hard. Now, late on the brakes now as they dive there into KFM turn number 1, work their way around. And Mac holding a sort of a middle of the road approach there now, forcing the driver behind him to stay there they are. And now having a look at Leach now as he works his way up towards the right-hander. Pretty close stuff now as they're on the brakes. You sort of got to trust the driver in front of you that he doesn't do something untoward because you're driving your own race, thinking that you're both in the same kind of mindset now. Down to the kink, into Rose Foundation, tap on the brakes, work your way up the right-hander now. You're going to want to do a gear change as you work your way up to Car Care Clinic, up the KFM straight, and then work your way down the back straight. And it's getting pretty tight at this moment in time.
Very, very tight now for that fight in that mid-pack. We're on board with James Leach. Behind him is Jason Absmeyer. Down the back band they go. Absmeyer's 0.3 of a second. And here he comes. And Leach, and he makes a move there on Stewie Mack. Up on the inside. And Leach gets his nose through on Mack. As a matter of fact, Absmeyer is still in there behind Stewie Mack. This is a fight for 9, 10 and 11th position, or should I say 8, 9 and 10th position as they make their way down the Porsche straight. We're on board now with Melvin Goos, the man that came in P1 in race 1. He sits there in 13th position and he's side by side there with the Gerard Niemand.
Well, nothing much between the two of them. Two teammates going against one another there. And I do believe they will try everything that they possibly can to ensure they do not make contact with one another. as we go back on board with Christopher Long. Human Bezaidner, it's still just 0.4 of a second. You see further up the track there, you've got Adrian Nell and the Maps Racing car of John Henry Vaughan. That's first and second, third in front of what you see, all locking up that right hand back. So that was a big step on the brake there, and that scrubs off a lot of speed. You enter there just over 140, scrub it down to about 135, and then bury the accelerator, turn on the steering once, and try and go through that double right-hander in one long sweep. That gets you the best speed down the back straight. Christopher Long, being a local racer, knows that pretty well, and that's where he made up that little piece of ground there on Kinder Bezaidner, the National Polo Cup racer.
Well, they're hanging it all out there now. They've got a little bit over 4 minutes to go, probably about 5 or so laps. And Stewie Mack there now sitting there behind Jason Absmeyer. Absmeyer sort of running middle of the road towards the right-hand side now. Late on the brakes, taps on the brakes, dives into KFM, running a little bit deep, manages to gather it and bring it back. And ahead of them there, it's James Leach. Leach working his way now up towards G Energy corner. Ahead of him there, Mike McGeer. McGeer in the 69 car holding out there now, because ahead of him there it's Kutzer. And Kutzer's hard on the gas now. Right, so we work our way down towards Rose Foundation. Take that soft right-hander up the KFM straight now, up towards Car Care Clinic. And we're on board there with Leach now. Leach sits up behind McGeer, and up behind him it's Absmeyer. Absmeyer about 0.9 of a second up behind him, but look at Leach exit now out of Car Care Clinic, and he's going to try and draft McGeer as he sits right up behind him now, almost touching the bumper now, maybe coming out a fraction too early. Will he have the drive going down towards Fastron corner?
Right down into Fastron they go now. There's a big lockup of the brakes there now with Leach and McGeer. Grobler's in there as well. It is a whole gaggle of cars there. Stewie Mack, Jose Niemand round off that top 12, 13 positions as McGeer sits and has a look on the outside at James Lynch. They are side by side. Who? Lynch on the inside. McGeer sits on his outside. That's Mike McGeer on the outside. Does he get him on the outside of turn number 1? I think he might just nail him. No, he doesn't, but he needs to just stick where he is, because he will have the line for the right-hander. That is at turn 2, G Energy corner, and on the inside he goes, but Leach is not letting him get away. Leach is not letting him get away, and Absmeyer is joining the party as well. There is nothing between the three of them as they work their way through the kink and into turn 3, Rose Foundation.
Well, keep an eye there on Jason Absmeyer. He sits up behind Mike McGeer. McGeer's fighting hard because Leach is ahead of him now. It's very difficult to overtake here on the double right-hander now, which is Car Care Clinic, and they work their way down the back straight now. Having a look there at Peter Grobler. He's trying to do a last dash effort now with about a lap and a half to go, or about 3 laps to go. And they're working their way hard now down towards the corner. 212 k's an hour before they stomp on the brakes into that right-hander now, which is Fastron corner. And look at this absolute war taking place mid-pack here, Frankie.
Yeah, it's a heck of a fight going out there in that mid-pack. We keep an eye on them. We're on board with the Absmeyer. Grobler is coming into play as well. Goos has got his nose ahead there of Stewie Mack as they head down the Porsche straight into the only left-hander at Killarney International Raceway. That's turn 1. That is Holzoek, also known as KFM corner. Out of KFM they come now, working their way up the Jabir straight towards turn 2. Into Quarry they go. G Energy. There's nothing between the 6 of them. We're on board there with Peter Grobler. Ahead of him is Absmeyer. Ahead of Absmeyer is Leach. Ahead of Leach in P7 is Mike McGeer as they work their way through the kink and race down towards turn 3. That is Rose Foundation. The Rose Foundation, or Dam's Dip as it's also known, down the Malmesbury Straight, i.e. KFM Straight, in towards turn 4, Car Care Clinic. There is nothing between the 6 of them as they work their way out of turn 4.
Well, we're working our way now into the closing stages of the race now. Still John Henry Vaughan leads out there from Adrian Nel, Clinton Besaidner, Christopher Long, Walter Swiggers, Kutzer, Mike McGeer, Jay Leach, Jason Absmeyer, and Peter Grobler make up your top 10. as they work their way now around in the final closing stages. And Mike McGear and them, McGear and Leach go off in a big coming together now, and that's affected them quite heavily. They try and come back onto the circuit, but that's going to affect their chances of getting credible points in this race. And we're now on board here with Melvin Goos. Oh, and he takes out Abspire as well. That is unfortunate. So that could pretty much be his race run as he works his way off the circuit. So it looks like John Henry Vaughan's pretty much got this sorted out. And we're on board now with Christopher Long coming out through the kink down towards Rose Foundation. Leader now, 2 laps to go before the checkered flag, and that is John Henry Vaughan, still being pursued there by Adrian Nell and Clinton Besainert. But they're pretty much skittled down the road, and they look pretty much unopposed at the moment, Frankie.
Well, I tell you what, these guys are driving the wheels off these National Polo Cup cars. As we were aboard with Besainert, we are now aboard with the Mike's Place Polo of Chris Long, Waldo Swiggers in P5, and Kotze rounding off the top half a dozen as they work their way out of turn number 5, out of Fostron corner. We're on board there with the Kotze, who's 1.1 seconds behind Swiggers. That is ahead of him there in that 5th position. The leader has now started his final lap, so all these Polo Cup cars are now on their last lap. John Henry Vaughan has got a 2.7 second gap over Adrian Nell in that 2nd position. All that Vaughan has to do now is nurse that Polo Cup car to the checkered flag. Nell is, gee whiz, over 3.5 seconds ahead of Besainert in that 3rd position. So all these top 3 need to do now is keep the cars on the tarmac and bring it home for 2nd and 3rd.
Well, I tell you what, John Henry Vaughan, as he works his way past the main grandstand for the last time, 12.5 laps he's done so far. He is on the final lap, the Maps Racing man, and 14 years of age. I tell you what a brilliant drive by him. I did say at the beginning, he's one of those top 3 that if he can get away, he can updust and disappear into the future. That's exactly what he's done. They've taken a 4-second gap out of Clinton Besainert, National Polo Cup rider. Swiggers, Long finds himself pretty close there to the back end of Besainert, but John Henry Vaughan coming through for the last time. He'll take it away, the Maps Racing Polo. He swings it from side to side, says thanks very much guys, as he takes away the win there. And Nell comes through in 2nd, Besainert in 3rd. Christopher Long should come through in 4th. Yes, he does. Grobler and Swiggers. There's Niemand coming through a little bit further down as well. Grobler takes it, rounding out the top 5. Waldo Swiggers from Kotze, Stuart Mack, Niemand, Sean Lerero made it to 10th position. That's as far as what he could go. And then Mike McGear, Leach coming through there. Warren Sheehan just ahead of Gavin Fleming with Abspire rounding out the top 15. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. A big thanks to JP Hydraulics and also to Volvo Cars Namibia for their sponsorship, and then also a big thanks to the local guys as well, Maps Racing, John Vaughan, Jarno van der Westhuizen from Quick Fix, and then also to Alpine Auto for their assistance as well. From the West Province Commentators Association, myself, Gary Fleming, Frankie Yernis, and Francois Butler, thanks very much for joining us. Same time next week, if Eskom doesn't turn our timings around, we'll be back with round number 2 of the British Touring Cars.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.